Hello, Karma Chameleons. My name is TBSKine, and good lord, there's a new champion in League of Legends. Neeko, the Curious Chameleon, was unveiled a few scant hours ago as I'm recording this, and usually I like to wait until there is like a full reveal of the champion, like until we have like the lore, the color story, everything is sort of real about the champion, and then I'll do a full video about them. But with Neeko, I feel like there's enough information already that we can ask the question, what is the deal with Neeko? And if any important information, anything massive gets revealed in her color story, or some later, if they release a comic, or good lord, who knows what else they have planned for her release, we'll do separate videos about that stuff. But for now, I really genuinely do want to talk about this champion because there's a lot of interesting stuff to dive into, both with her lore and with her character design. But before we do, there's a little tiny, just a tiny little detail that we perhaps need to get out of the way. Neeko identifies as a lesbian. So says Matt Dunn, who is senior narrative writer at Riot Games, and indeed the writer behind Neeko. And as he retweeted from Spiderax, who is one of those moderators at Surrender at 20, who is also the first person to publish the fact that Neeko is gay, she's the first openly gay champion in League of Legends. Now, this information might sound a little bit strange to you because you think back, hang on, wasn't there like a whole thing about Varus and he was supposed to be the first gay? No. Varus and his lore update was the first time gay characters were confirmed to exist in the League of Legends universe. But Varus himself is a Darkin. He's an ancient spirit sealed into a weapon that possesses the bodies of anyone who touches it. He's possessing the body of a man called Valmar, who happens to have a male lover, but Varus, the entity itself, is not gay. So, in-game, the champions that you play with, Varus isn't gay, and he's not actually a gay champion, but Neeko is. The reason why I bring this up at all is because that nobody seems to be talking about this except the person who wrote Neeko. Like, none of the official Riot channels have mentioned it or brought it up or said, hey, this we have. So I just thought probably a lot of people weren't aware of this, and I should probably bring it up at the start of the video so that people know that this is what's going on. Now, it may be that they are holding off on that particular reveal until she's released to the live servers. I don't know, do they have some kind of event in mind, or are they just gonna not even address it at all? I don't know. It's something we're gonna be talking about somewhere down the line. I'm at the moment, I'm in the process of writing a video specifically talking about the history, or the lack of history, of LGBT champions in League of Legends, like the history of some of the champions that they tried to develop, some of the champions that they failed to release, but that's all for later. That's promo for the, talk about Neeko, let's talk about the champion. And we're going to start with her lore. Hailing from a long-lost tribe of Vastaya, Neeko can blend into any crowd by borrowing the appearance of others, even absorbing something of their emotional state to tell friend from foe in an instant. No one is ever sure where or who Neeko might be, but those who intend to do her harm will soon witness her true colors revealed, haha, chameleon joke, and feel the full power of her primordial spirit magic unleashed upon them. So Neeko is a chameleon champion. Specifically, her gameplay revolves around transforming into allied champions in order to confuse the enemy, and using an ability that creates clones on the map to essentially be kind of confusing and annoying in the same way that Shaco or LeBlanc are. She also does seem to have quite a lot of crowd control, so those are sort of the gameplay concepts that underpin who the character is. Which leads us on into the lore of the character. Neeko was born on a remote and largely unknown island, far to the east, where the last members of an ancient Vastayan tribe remained isolated from the rest of the world. They were called the Ovicat, and could trace their lineage generation by generation back to the legendary Vastaya Shairai, the ancestors of all Vastaya. The Ovicat were peaceful beings of unrivaled potential. Their harmonious society blended seamlessly with the spirit realm so that their Shoma, their spiritual essence, could intermingle with other beings through mere proximity, and even help them mimic other physical forms. No secrets existed between the Ovicat, but few were as curious, resilient, or energetic as young Neeko. But it was not to last. Cataclysm loomed on the horizon. Entire society dead. This is one of the most sudden calls to adventure I think that we have in League of Legends and all. Essentially, everything's good, peaceful, harmonious. It was Ovicat are having a great time, and then Cataclysm looms on the horizon. Boom, the entire island is dead. Neeko is the last surviving member of their race, probably. So, Neeko is a caveman. Like, that was the thing that struck me when I read this lore, is that that's the concept of the character. She's a caveman. She's someone from an isolated people who have never been in contact with the rest of the world, who are more closely genetically connected to the legendary ancestors of all the Vestaya. That is to say, she's essentially a Neanderthal. And that is something that League of Legends has dabbled in before, specifically with the character of Nar, who was frozen by, in the conflict over the Howling Abyss, when the Void attempted to break through the frozen Watchers of the Abyss. Nar was part of that battle. He was frozen for like many years, eventually broke free, and now he's a cave yordle in the modern world. So this is a concept that League of Legends have played with before, but interestingly, Neeko seems to be a little bit of a grab bag of different concepts from various places in League of Legends lore. In her innocence and sort of naivete, she's very much like Nunu. Like, she's this childlike young person who's adventurous and wants to see the world and who's convinced of the goodness inherent in all the people around her. And she's also a lot like Zoe, in the sense that, again, we have this very young girl who is invested with tremendous power and who just kind of happily bounces around the world. Like, there's a lot of other characters being combined into who Neeko is. And when you look at her kit, like, a lot of her abilities do resemble other champions. That is to say, she has the ability to send out a clone in a particular direction, which, you know, Shaco and LeBlanc very much. And she has the ability to... specifically, she has, I think it's her Q, which is a route that looks a lot like the kind of thing that Zyra can do. Even more so when you look at her ultimate ability, which is that she creates a zone around herself, which eventually will root everyone who's around her, which is a lot like Zyra, and also a lot like the kind of thing that perhaps Morgana can do. And my point of bringing this up is that we have this character who's supposed to be a shapeshifter, who's supposed to be able to be pretty much anyone in the game. And I think they've done a very clever job of kind of both combining aspects of previously existing characters in League of Legends, both in terms of lore and story and personality, and in terms of gameplay, into creating this new champion. Like, if that's intentional, that is a very clever little thing to do. Anyway, Neeko is essentially, she flies away from her island because Cataclysm loomed on the horizon, and then it was gone. I assume they're going to expand on what exactly happened in some later lore update. But for the moment, all we know is that Cataclysm loomed on the horizon, and therefore everybody is dead. She manages to get herself aboard a mercantile vessel, a trading ship, bound for a place called Heraldport, which I believe you can find on the map if you go there and look. I'm not particularly interested in that, though. And she comes to this Heraldport place, which is essentially the caveman coming to civilization. And if you remember, in any other story you've read where some caveman who was frozen in the Arctic, I don't know, 1,000 years ago, is unthawed and suddenly exposed to modern society, you pretty much know how the story goes. She comes into contact with modern things and she's all, wow, this is weird and strange, and I'm gonna do a caveman thing and cause an awkward situation. And that's exactly what happens. She's spotted by a Vestayan sailor named Crete. Neeko could not understand all his words, but he demanded to know which tribe she belonged to. Neeko reached out with her Shoma, mimicking his face and expression to make her peaceful intentions understood, but Crete did not seem to like this at all. Uh-oh, awkward situation. Overwhelmed by his darkening thoughts, Neeko fled into the crowd, altering her shape many times until she escaped. She simply could not understand how anyone might rely solely on words as their singular form of communication. It seemed so limiting. Here we hit upon one of the classical tropes that is often associated with the unthought caveman coming into contact with modern society, is that, haha, cavemen don't know how to speak properly. And that's expressed, like, when you think about the way that cavemen tend to be portrayed in popular cultures, like, me thag, me caveman, me hungry, me want eat. Like, they are bad at language, they are bad at words, they have primitive language. And that's something that this particular version of the caveman archetype is playing with a little bit, because it's not so much that she can't communicate, it's rather that she speaks a language that is completely different from what the people of Runeterra speak. She speaks a language that relies on being able to transform herself into other people, to literally take on their form in order to show that she's taking on their perspective. Like, it's a very different method of communication, which is not necessarily portrayed as inferior, but just very difficult to understand for people who are not used to talking to actual literal shapeshifters. It's an interesting attempt at subversion. but they still fall back on, like, and this is why I have this video at all, is that Neeko tends to talk about herself in third person. Let's see if we can find here. No one expects Neeko to be not Neeko and to be not Neeko instead. Right, that kind of thing where she talks about herself in third person, uses kind of bungled grammar in order to... It's supposed to be endearing. It's supposed to be very cute and kind of adorable, but it's also like you're also leaning into that old trope of, haha, uncivilized, uncontacted people don't know how to speak properly. They are uncivilized because they don't have language, which has... It's a trope that has a long and ugly history, and integrating it into your character design is maybe, it's like, the idea is to communicate that she comes from a very different language tradition, that she doesn't necessarily understand the modes of language that are used in general in Runeterra, which is to speak English. But it's like, the history of that particular trope is a little bit... Is that worth it? I'm not sure it is. Anyway, seeking solace, she took on the shape of the sleek jungle cats she encountered among the trees and tried to run with them. Neeko loved being fast and agile, and their bright keen eyes reminded her of home, until, quite unexpectedly, the leader transformed into a beautiful, strong, dark-haired woman. After a tense standoff, she introduced herself as Nidalee, and reluctantly accepted Neeko into the group. So Neeko encounters Nidalee, another character in League of Legends who's capable of transforming into other things. Again, that whole thing of grabbing things from a bunch of other champions to get into this one champion. And they form a apparently very powerful friendship. No word on whether that friendship ever turned romantic. We can only speculate. But Neeko and Nidalee apparently are friends, and I'm hopeful that this means that maybe Nidalee is about to get a lore update sometime soon, because she could really freaking need one. But that's besides the point. Neeko runs with Nidalee's crowd for a time and, forms a friendship, yada, yada, yada. But eventually she gets kind of homesick. She's longing to have her tribe back. She wants to have the Ovicat back. And so she decides that while her life among the Ovicat may be lost forever, she envisions a magical future, a larger tribe of like-hearted Vastaya, Yordles, humans, and whatever other creatures might share her dream. As far as she is concerned, everyone has the potential to find a place in her new tribe. She has pledged to seek these souls out, to befriend them and defend their Shoma with her life. And this is the state in which we encounter Neeko when we see her in the game. She's at this point when she has decided, I'm going to reform my old society, I'm going to make myself another community, another family, and I'm going to go out there and find anyone who might be willing to join me. And it ends on one of the most menacing lines I've ever seen in a champion bio. To know Neeko is to love Neeko, and to love Neeko is to be Neeko. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds vaguely Lovecraftian to me. Like, if you know her, you will instantly fall in love with her, and when you fall in love with her, you will become her. Like, that sounds a little... I don't know, there's something so incredibly dark about this particular line that I'm wondering whether they're setting up for some kind of darker reveal that Neeko accidentally mind controls the people who are around her or something like that. No, I don't actually think they're probably going to go for that. Haven't really seen any signaling of that particular... It's so dark compared to everything else in her bio, I couldn't help but notice it. So, that's the lore concept of the character. We have this uncontacted tribe of ancient proto-Vastaya living far away from all other civilization, like cut off from contact with humans, cut off from contact with any of the other nations of the world, who don't really understand the language, who are completely alien and different. And so Neeko comes to the modern, air quotes, Runeterran world and is completely blown away by all the many cultures and all the many people and the wide, wide world that she's about to explore. Which leads us on to her character design. Neeko... Okay, so let's start with the good stuff, because I have a lot of nitpicky criticisms and stuff like that, so let's start with the good things. First of all, I love her color. Like, she's so wonderful and colorful, and that's something that I'm always happy to see in League of Legends. Like, I know that we've had, like, Zoe recently, who's also a very colorful mage, and who kind of has very much the same aesthetic thing going on. And I know League of Legends generally has tended a little bit more towards the colorful recently. I know a lot of people miss some of the more old sort of badass, warrior, gritty stuff that used to be more a part of League of Legends. But for me, yeah, this is exactly my aesthetic. I like this. This is the kind of aesthetic I like to see explored in video games. Bright, colorful, interesting, like lots of different color combinations, lots of combinations of different aesthetics going on. Yes, this is extremely my jam. I also enjoy that, like, the specific way they've chosen to meld her particular characteristics. She is a shapeshifter, after all, and so it's not a bad idea at all to sort of show that transition between her lizard properties and her human properties in kind of a literal way by having it almost seem like, in the same way that Evelyn has this darkness that kind of ripples across her skin, it seems to be sort of the same thing that's going on here, where her lizard-like characteristics are not just that she has a lizard hand, but that it sort of envelops her body in unpredictable ways. What would be really interesting, which I'm sure they haven't done, but what would be really interesting would be if it kind of moved across her body, like that sometimes she's human, sometimes she's more lizard-like. It's interesting that they're kind of implying that, but and she's just cute. Like, she's just adorable. And, oh, by the way, interesting little detail about her head. Her eyes are extra far apart and extra big, and this is especially apparent when you look at her character model, that they are intentionally making her eyes be as far apart as possible and making them really, really big in order to kind of imply that chameleon aspect to her with, you know, where one of the things that identifies a chameleon is large eyes located on the sides of the head rather than on the front. They're kind of hearkening towards that, and I think it works. Like, it makes her look just kind of weird enough that you get that, okay, this is not an entirely human person feeling from it. So I like that. That was the good stuff. Now I'm about to go on a big joy-kill, buzz-kill criticism ramble. Sorry about that, but that's the way these videos go. The first question I had when I read Neeko's bio was, why does she look human? Like, why does she look human at all? Part of the whole Vestaya thing is that they represent the collision between, you know, the human world and the human culture and the human approach to life, and then that spiritual realm, that natural world, that collision between those two particular types of cultures, where the Vestaya are all closer connected to nature, they're all closer connected to the spirit realm, they're all more in tune with the natural energies of the world, yada yada yada, which is why the Vestaya tend to not like the Noxians very much, because they're super not in tune with the natural rhythms of the world and stuff. That was part of the update that came along with Saya and Rakan in particular. With Neeko, we have this uncontacted tribe of Vestaya who have lived in isolation for hundreds, maybe thousands of years, far, far away from everything else, who've never been, like, influenced by the human world, who have never encountered humans, who've never been around any of this stuff. So why does she look so human? Like, if you want, for me, it was like, why not make her more alien? Why not make her weirder? Why not play up the animal aspect in order to show that, oh, she's not at all like the normal Vestaya. She's more Vestaya-like than they are. She's more magical than they are, by giving her a much less human form, by really playing up the monster aspect, by really playing up the shapeshifter aspect. That's the other thing. Now, from a game design perspective, there are some things that you kind of have to do in a game. A character has to be recognizable as quickly as possible when the player sees them, especially in a quick, twitchy game like League of Legends. When you see some character walk out of the fog of war or out of the bushes, you need to see who they are by their silhouette, by their color design. It needs to be obvious instantly. So a character model in-game has to be fixed. The obvious place to go with a shapeshifter character design would be to have a character who changes their shape all the time. Like, when she's just walking across the field, like, sometimes she has lizard legs and sometimes she has dragon arms, and, like, sometimes she's a lion for no reason because she's a shapeshifter and she can do what she wants. From a game design perspective, that's probably not possible. But still, then why not express it more explicitly in her character design that she's a chimera character? Like, she's a hybrid. She can be anything. She can look like anything. Why just have her be a cute girl in cosplay? Especially something I looked at was her hands. Like, chameleons famously don't have 5 fingers on each of their... They have these 2-toed limbs that they use to grasp things in order to climb with. And it's one of the iconic visual signifiers of a particular type of lizard being a chameleon. How can you tell it's a chameleon? Well, one of the ways you can tell is because they have these grabby 2-toed fingers, or 2-toed hands. Why not give her that? Like, why does she have 5 extremely normal-looking human hands with a bit of makeup on them, why doesn't she have lizard hands? Why doesn't she have lizard feet or lizard legs? Why is she not more scaly? Why doesn't she have a long tongue? Like, that's the other thing about chameleons, like the long-ass tongue that they use to catch prey with, that's a really identifying feature of them. Why is that not part of the character design? Why is the big wide mouth that chameleons tend to have not a part of the character design? For that matter, I praised the whole idea of having her have eyes that are extra far apart and very big. And it works, yeah, but why not go further with it? Why not actually give her chameleon eyes that sit on the sides of her? Like, to really make her look alien and weird and different, to communicate from a visual perspective, the whole idea of her being completely cut off, a completely alien creature to the new world, and to explain why she might have trouble interacting with normal people because she looks so strange and weird and different. And you might say, oh, but she's been in contact with humans now, she has seen humans now, so now she's taken on their appearance. Sure, fair enough, but my argument is that's not as interesting as the character being more explicitly monstrous, being more explicitly different. We have this story which is very much about an alienated other, someone who has no contact with civilization, coming into contact with it and coming into conflict with it because she has ideals and ideas and a way of communicating that doesn't work for normal modern people in the Runeterran world. There are so many opportunities to express that in a more physical way through her character design. I like cute girls in cosplay outfits like this. Like, I enjoy them. I think she's adorable as hell. I really like her. I just wonder why she isn't more interesting. Like, she's wearing boots. Why? Why do her clothes, by the way, look like this? Again, uncontacted tribes, separate from the rest of the world for thousands of years. Why does she wear what looks like a halter top, I think, and a skirt with some leather laces on it? Like, why doesn't she have a completely different fashion style from everyone else in League of Legends? Why doesn't she have these very different, completely outrageous clothes? Or indeed, since she's a shapeshifter, why doesn't she have all kinds of weirdly different clothes? Why isn't she wearing like a Shuriman thing on one hand, and then she's also wearing some Noxian stuff and some Demacians, like combining aesthetics in a completely weird way to signify that she's a shapeshifter. She can be anyone, she can be from anywhere if she wants to. Like, there's so many opportunities for visual storytelling in her design that they just kind of seem to have missed out on for no good reason, and it's just kind of eh. It is like, in the same way that I was disappointed by Kai'Sa, I'm a little bit disappointed by this, in that there's so much more potential for this character design concept from a visual perspective, and it seems like they just went with the most obvious thing and never really bothered to think outside of the box. Oh, she's a Vestaya who's also a chameleon. Well, we'll do a cute girl and give her a tail. There we go, that's a Vestaya. Oh, also, we could put some green makeup on her so she looks like she's in cosplay. There we go, chameleon girl designed. And it's just, it's not bad. Like, I'm not saying that the design is bad. I'm just saying, I've seen designs like this a million times before, and this is not very interesting. Anyway, if new information comes out, if we get a color story that reveals shocking new information, like for instance that she's gay, that would be very interesting. I'm going to do a separate video about that when the time comes. For the moment, I will just say that if you've enjoyed this video, then there's a like button down below that I recommend that you click on in order to help out the channel, because that's YouTube wants the clicks, and I am a slave to their desires. I am a peon serving in the content mines, and my only sustenance is subscribers and likes on my videos. So if you want to help me out there, please, then you can click on that. Good lord, I've been talking for a long time. I also have a Patreon. If you have like $1 a month that you don't mind parting with, that you don't mind me having that dollar to buy some, I don't know, food. Food is good. I like food. Food is not, I remember food. Good lord, it was nice when I had food back in the day. It would be cool to have that again. So if you want to help me out with that, you can head on over to patreon.com. There's some perks over there, there's access to the Discord, yada, yada, yada. And if you don't want to, or if you're not in a position where you can support people's Patreons, of course, that's completely okay. Don't worry about it. I'm just happy that you've watched the video this far. If you have disliked this video, well, you know, there's a button for that specific purpose right there. And you should go and click on it if you dislike this video. Of course, like, there's a non-zero, like, if you click on it, it might be the dislike button, or it might be a shape-shifting other web element masquerading as the dislike button, and I'm not really sure what those things, like when you click on them, sometimes they just take you to Google, and sometimes they take you to these weird conspiracy websites on the dark web that are just like full of weird, like lizard people running the government and stuff like that. And they look completely like dislike buttons. It's impossible to tell the difference, but you click on one and poof, all of a sudden you're on like 50 government watch lists and you're getting called in by the police for hearings. And they want to know where you've hidden the gold. And I've never had, do I look like a person who's had gold? If I had gold, would I be living in this apartment? Hell no, I wouldn't. But okay, I guess, just because you visit a damn web. Anyway, be careful when you click on the dislike button. That's all I'm saying. Thank you very much for watching.